Which
Meow.
who said that? I didn't say that on recording. You did.
I hate you.
How often do you say that in the rain response?
Not that
Not that
often.
often.
I feel like I'm nice-ish.
I was gonna I was gonna say which player is gonna see our video this time since Claudia saw the last one. All right. Goodness, welcome back to Right as Rain. Bella and Charles are back for a win show. We had four matches to talk about the last time, so it was like there were wins in there. But um this it was just a whole kind of weird weekend for the Rain, right? Because I think even during the pre-match press conference that the Rain had with the media, Laura talked about. I think Susie from Sounder Heart Ride of Valkyries mentioned that the weather tends to be pretty unique when they go to racing, right? Sure enough, that match initially the match was scheduled for Friday, right, and it got pushed back to Saturday, which was tough because Laura revealed that I think post match after the match on Saturday that the players had all like fueled up and they were like physically preparing to head to the stadium, and then they were told that they weren't. So it's like all of this, you prepare your body, and then you just have to wait it out. And they played at
However,
10 a.m.
as weather delays go,
Mm.
like normally the weather delays are like you've played 15 minutes and then there's a lightning strike and you have to wait 3 hours until you play again. So like
Yeah.
even though like yes, it is frustrating, the fact that they knew the game was actually moved before they had started playing, I think is like it like of the weather delays you could get, this is one of the better ones, right? Like
Yeah.
you knew there was a tornado warning, you knew that it was moved to tomorrow. Like yes, you had fueled up and everything, but you hadn't started warming up. You hadn't left the hotel. Like, is it ideal? No. Is it better than some of the other situations them and other teams have been in? Absolutely.
This is true. This is very true. Um, yeah, it was certainly one of the more unique ones because I feel like I hadn't heard anything a bunch. And then, it's funny, have all of the like live updates things. Oh, there's Has on my phone about the match. And it was just like, no, nothing's happening. Why isn't anything happening? So, yeah, we'll get into this one. Seattle wins in familiar fashion, the one goal decides the match sort of thing. And I was kind of talking to someone on our Blue Sky about this. But they weren't necessarily happy with the way that the results have been going, and I understand probably wanting to win by more. I just feel a bit better right now, obviously, than last year, generally. But considering the amount of games that they lost by a goal last year, right? Like there are instances where, sometimes it's luck, right? Sometimes it's the way the ball bounces, but sometimes it legitimately is you aren't a team that's able to get over the hump in that regard to win the close games. And, you know, not touch wood, as Laura would say. She says touch wood. It's not knock on wood. They've been doing that so far. They would like to keep doing that, but you know, so far they have. Maddie Darlene scores in the 38th minute, so the Maddie Darlene hype train continues. I did pick her as our key player to watch, so but it's an interesting match. I was very stressed out for most of it because as Bella was curious about the defending in this one. Um, and yeah, like I don't know. Bella, I know you've been doing a ton, right? Bella's been doing a lot. Um, God bless her for dealing with my ass trying to continue to do this show as much as, but you have since seen this match. What did you see from it? What did you take away from it? It is a win, but obviously it's one that they'd like to be better from.
Yeah, it's a tough one because on the one hand you're happy they got the result. On the other hand, it was not the most enjoyable to watch. Um, and I think there are positives and negatives to that. Um, I think a big positive to take away is that they didn't create a lot of chances, but they scored when they did create a chance. And that is something that had been sorely missing in the past. They had 4 total shots, 3 were on target, 1 was a goal. And it seemed like for a lot of the game, their game plan was to sit back really deep and just absorb a lot of pressure. And if you look at the Opta stats about players and their average positions, all of the Racing players are in the Reign's defensive half, and all of the Reign's players are in the Reign's defensive half. Like that is how much the Reign were spending in their own half. And it's not super fun to watch your team just defend forever and have the other team have 62% possession and 20 shots. 20 shots is an insane amount of shots. At the same time, from those shots, Opta only has that as 1.02 expected goals compared to the Reign's 0.85. So I think that says a lot about the quality of shots that Louisville was facing. Only one of their shots was on target. Claudia didn't have to do a whole lot other than, dealing with those crosses in the wind, which I think it was hard to tell on TV. And it kind of just looked like she was making mistakes. But really, when you're a goalkeeper and the wind is messing with those crosses, it is incredibly difficult to judge them. And I do think they got lucky on a couple of them, but I think, she managed to adjust herself well. But the the amount of chances that Racing created, as much as none of them resulted in a goal, it does feel like a concerning amount of chances were created. Laura said after the game that she thought her team defended really well. And in some cases, I do agree. But at the same time, it's hard to say that 20 shots is good defending, right? At some point, you want to stop those shots from happening.
Yeah.
And part of that was obviously just Racing having so much of the possession, but even just like passes in the final third, Racing had 191. Guess how many the Reign had?
Uh, Somewhere around maybe 20.
53.
Okay.
That's still like 25% of what Racing had. Racing had 33 crosses attempted. The
Jesus.
Reign had 1. Louisville had 12 corners. The Reign had 1. So like I'm torn because on the one hand you want your team to be gritty and be able to tough out those games when they aren't pretty, and you have to do a lot of defending and just take advantage of your chances. And massive credit to Maddie Darlene for scoring that goal. Beautiful ball in from Sam Meza after she had sort of had a similar opportunity earlier in the game and had put it too far behind Maddie. So she didn't have the same ability to run onto it like she did with the chance that she scored on. But I think the question becomes, how many of the games are you going to win like that?
Ah,
I think you can only do it so often and so much before it gets sort of exhausting as a player, right? Like these are talented players who want the ball at their feet, who want to, pass it around and have some possession and be able to put their high press on. And with Louisville, we saw a little bit of the press, but not really that much because, they were more like, let's kind of just stay within our own half. And, I think they did a really good job of containing Savannah DeMello. I think anytime Savannah DeMello looked to make a really dangerous run with the ball, Sam Meza or Anghra James Turner were there to just slow her down, divert her, anything to prevent her from getting the kind of space that she likes to operate in. So it's it's like on one hand they did do a good job defensively. They didn't let in any goals. It's not like Racing had particularly high quality chances. I think there were a couple where it looked like they got really lucky that no one was on the end of a cross. It was stressful to watch. Even my mom noticed. Like if my mom notices, this is a woman who literally during the game, I told her that like Sam and Maddie scored in transition, and she's like, "What does it mean to score in transition?"
Oh,
I love my mother, but please, you have been a season ticket holder for like 5 years now, and you don't know what scoring in transition is. Like, have I done a bad job? But I think it's good to be able to win like that, but I just don't think you can do that an entire season.
it's
And
not
I
sustainable.
no, and I feel like a lot of the games have been that, right? That was the Kansas City game, although arguably they created more chances against Kansas City. But
Yeah.
similar in the Bay game, like they've been outpossessed a lot. Um, so sometimes it works out for you and you put away your one chance. But I'm just cautious of how much it continues to happen. Obviously they're scoring more than they did last year, which is great, but they're not scoring that much more. Like, so I don't know if it's, you know, putting so much focus on the defense that the offense is sort of not getting the focus it needs. But at the same time, you really need to play good defense to win games. And we know Laura Harvey is a defensive minded coach, and she's a very brilliant defensive minded coach. Like there's a reason that her teams have been very successful playing that way. But I do hope to see just more of the offensive flair of this team. It was I was kind of surprised they didn't really get Lynn in behind with how high Racing Louisville was playing their line. Obviously, Maddie's chance was kind of getting her in behind, so that one did work out. Um, but I do think there needs to be some level of like, yes, this is how your defense needs to play every game, but you don't want to defend for 80% of the game. Like that's exhausting. And you have really brilliant players on the ball. I mean, G didn't even play in this game. I was shocked to see her not
Yeah.
start, let alone not even come off the bench. And especially because she's a good defender. She puts in a strong defensive shift when she plays, surprisingly so. I'm always pleasantly surprised by how fast she is. Um, and so I just wonder how can they get some of those more creative players to be able to have that space to use that creativity and find Lennon behind and have more than just one of those chances, or two. So I think it's a very good win. They've talked about wanting to be able to get those gritty wins. That is a big thing for them. I think that's the mark of good professionals. But I do think, as someone who used to be on soccer teams that really sucked, and I was in goal just being pelted with shots, and
Guys,
it was like I could make
jeez.
20. It was like I could make 20 saves and still like let 3 goals in, and I would just be like, I can't do this. Like it just gets a little exhausting. And I was in high school, and this is a very different level, but I imagine it's similar as a professional, right? Like you want to do the other things you're good at too. You don't want to defend the whole game. No one wants to defend the whole game. You'll do it if you have to, but how many times are they going to have to?
Yeah, it's so I looked at the fixtures while you were speaking, right?
Hmm.
They've scored more than one goal once in North Carolina. They've conceded more than one goal once, the Angel City match,
Yep.
right? They like so far, if you're watching the Seattle Reign 2025, you're not getting high action per se in terms of the score. That is
No.
just not happening.
You are
Their
not getting
last
the Washington Spirit results that are happening week in, week out.
no. Um Goodness, so what is this? Three so five of the last six matches they've played, it ended up in a 1-0 result. With Seattle winning four of those. So like oh no, sorry, three of those. So great, but also like yeah, it is yeah, no, it's not sustainable. And I know I feel bad because I want to like I need to have a soundboard of Laura isms. I just need the goals change games. quality. I could do this. Yeah, we could do this.
I actually think this is a terrific idea.
The Laura soundboard, would she kill me for doing that though? Um,
She might think it's kind of funny.
I think I just have to have the moose present again, and she would feel fine about it. Um, yeah, I don't know. We're what, 9 matches into the season?
Bro, I couldn't tell you.
Um, bruh.
I feel like
But
8 because I feel like we were at 7 last
nope,
time.
nine,
Damn.
nine. So you're 9 matches into the season, so it's like, I can. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And you're in playoff position.
You are
You're like you one more win and you jump a ton of
just
spaces.
third. You go
Like
to third. Yeah.
in terms of like overall
Mm.
results, like this is the kind of improvement you want to see from last season, right? Because defending is
Yes.
what killed them so many times. The
Yeah.
question is, can they put it together with the offensive improvements and player additions that they've made,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Because Maddie and Lynn,
Yes.
they are terrific defenders, right? I think Jordan Heidema has put in so much defensive effort, and she deserves a lot of praise for that. But you also need to score goals, and you know that they want to score goals. And, you know, you sign Lynn Biondolo to do a lot of things, but you don't sign her just to defend. You sign Lynn Biondolo because you want someone to score goals. And right now, Maddie Darlene is the team's leading goal scorer because she is the only player with more than one goal scored this season, with 2. Like, that is how small the goal scoring has been. And it's great you're getting wins. It really, really is. And I think that's great for their motivation and their confidence. But we've seen them in the past get frustrated when they're creating chances and the goals aren't happening.
Yeah.
And even more frustrated when they're not creating chances. Like Laura has talked about, like, if we win a game 1-0, but we're not creating a lot of chances, I'll be happy in the moment, but I probably won't be very happy afterward. I'd be happier if we were creating a lot of chances and didn't score, because you need to give yourself chances. You just do. It's great if you can finish those individual chances, and I think the team has been good and maybe a little bit lucky at finishing some of those chances this season. But for with all the, again, creative players that they have, you feel like they would be creating more chances. Like I almost feel like they were creating more chances earlier in the season.
Really.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why. Maybe I'm incorrect in that, but like I feel like there was maybe a little more confidence going
Mhm.
forward. And the defensive focus is important, but I do feel like there's just something, the balance is just slightly off. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that the team is aware of that. Um, and they talk about getting these gritty wins after the fact. Like there's been multiple times the post game where they come in and they're just like, yeah, these are the gritty wins you have to be able to get. You do have to be able to get those, but you're going to get exhausted if that's all you're doing, right? Like it's not like you're trying to win every game 4-0. That's not going to happen.
No.
But you do want to have some cushion in some games, or at least hold possession so that you're not defending the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just so much of, like, just what would look like exhausting defending. And credit to the players, they did do a good job. They blocked a lot of shots. You know, there wasn't anything super dangerous for Claudia to deal with, but I do think it's not just it's not going to get you through an entire season.
Mm.
I do think it is the kind of win you need to get in playoffs, right? Like I think that's incredibly important. You see a lot of results be like that in playoffs when teams are, you know, trying to move on and it's one and done. But they're going to have to get some wins that aren't like this,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. I've said this. I said this on, I think, our Sounders show, but so often I feel like I am the optimist. Um, and just hearing you talk through it, right, and kind of thinking through how this has gone, um, I feel all right because I mean, if this is you working through your like figuring it out, right, and
Yeah,
it's not certainly ideal, but if you're like you're talking about getting the wins and getting the gritty wins, right? Like if you're getting the wins while you're completing the puzzle, great. That's what, teams who have the higher aspirations do,
right.
So yeah, but I do understand it. It's just like, hey, you have to get clicking a little bit here. Yeah, you can't continue to do this like as you mentioned, everything I feels like we've been talking about, whether it's me and you or hearing it in the pressers, right? With like talking about the defense. I talked to Maddie Curry. I gotta write that up. God damn it. I talked to Maddie Curry the other day at open training. Very nice human being. Weird that she's a year older than me. Don't like it.
Let's not talk
Um
about that.
you do it 24 years old. Um, talking about Scott Parkinson and how he's helped. Like I saw Scott personally. I was watching an open media training, how he was Phoebe loves to get extra help after these. And I should do a story on that. Um, but anyway, it feels like the emphasis so much around this club, at least in my lens, has been about the defensive work, and that's great. But yeah, it shouldn't have to be that unit shouldn't have to be as strained as much as it has late. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say late.
I mean,
Throughout the
I, I
season.
I wouldn't say it's like ring the alarm bells, right?
Yeah, no,
You're still, what, a third of the way through the season, something like that. Like you have some time, and I do think that having good defense is a great foundation, right? That is again what like great Laura Harvey teams have been built on. I think of the team that won the Shield. Like they scored some goals, don't get me wrong, but they needed to defend as well. And Laura's always been big in defense, and because it was such a massive issue last year, I think they focused a lot on it, and they've needed to. But then they also talked in the offseason about bringing in those attackers and those scoring options, and haven't quite fit them in yet. Like I really I think Lynn Biondolo has been fantastic, and she had no shots in the last game. And I think she had like one in the game previous. Like when you have a player like that, you need to get her opportunities. And Laura knows that too. The team knows that. They want to get her more opportunities. And I'm just hoping that they can sort of suss that out and get themselves together on that sooner rather than later. Because once you get to the latter part of the season, you're going to run out of time eventually. And yes, she's on a 2-year contract, and she or 3-year contract, 2-year, 3-year, one of those. She'll be back.
uh, yeah,
She's not going anywhere in the immediate future. Um, and they've talked about this being a building year, not necessarily thinking they're gonna.
that's
We
right.
talked about this last
Yeah.
week, not necessarily thinking they're gonna win the championship this year, but I do want to start seeing more of those pieces come together. Right? You've got the defensive piece down, and yeah, you got to improve little things, sure, but defense wasn't the only issue last year. Offense was as well, which was kind of the problem, is that both were an issue. So
Both bad.
like I don't mind defense being the focus. I'm a massive defense fan. I like was watching the Storm the other day. I was like, they're not really the team to watch if you want like amazing offensive things, but if you want to watch some of the best individual defenders in the WNBA, watch Gabby Williams and Skylar Diggins
Oh,
and Ezzy Magbagor. Like and I love watching that. I really do. I love watching Lauren Barnes make slide tackles. I love watching how smart Jordan Bugg has been with her positioning. Phoebe McClernand has been fantastic. I really loved what Madison Curry has been doing as well. I think there are so many great defenders and great defensive things happening everywhere. James Turner, Meza, like literally everyone. And I just hope that they can find a way to balance it a little bit better
yeah.
for themselves and for the results and for fans. I think fans want to see some offense. They want to see some excitement. And I don't want to say that they should play in a specific way because of fans, because really you're playing to win. But I do think there just needs to be a little more balance, and maybe overcompensating a little bit just because of how much the defense struggled last year. And I don't know for sure. Obviously, I'm not there. But we have heard a lot about how much effort they've put into the defense and how much work they've put into it. So I hope that at least like 75% of that same effort is also going into the offense
Mm.
and how to get opportunities out of that defense. Right? I think like the goal against Louisville was a good example was, you know, they played good defense, and then when Sam Meza had the opportunity and she saw the space, she played Maddie in, and that was great. But I think that they can do more of that. Like they have even if they're defending a lot, I still feel like they can create more chances. And I just hope to see that. But love all of
It's
them. So
yeah, no, I think
also
the
Laura knows better than me, so I should just shut up. But
we'll have her call you out again on the training ground again and
yeah,
just see how that goes.
I'm not getting her in trouble this time. So like,
Well, I do want to bring up part of the wait, what is I don't know. We'll get to that. Um, yeah. No, I don't know. It is important to kind of like I think the way I'd very like man simplify it is, hey, this is something to acknowledge, this is something to note. You've got to track it and see if this is, reality for this team. This is just they're gonna have to grind out to just barely get the quality get the soundboard. Get the soundboard.
I don't. Yeah, I
Um
think she'd be more insulted by you trying to do her accent than
yep,
like an
no, I've
actual
learned to
Vanga
just kind of
recording of her.
stop doing it.
That's good. That's
Um
smart.
Uh, but just to get a goal and then maybe two. Um, or
Because
if
what
it's
happens? Here's
just
my question: what happens if Louisville had scored?
uh
Right? Like, do you then have the energy left, or are you creating enough chances then to get a goal and go ahead? Like, I think North Carolina was a bit of an odd one because it was a beautiful build up to the first goal, and then Jordan Buggs was like out of nowhere,
yeah.
like a poorly cleared or maybe it was passed back to her. I don't quite recall, off a corner kick, and just an absolute banger from distance. But it wasn't like they had necessarily created that chance. Like that's a once in a season type goal. And if she wants to score three more, I'm here for it. However, I don't think it's particularly
However,
so. Like my main concern is if that defense didn't hold up like it did. Same thing against Kansas City. Like they had the goal that was scored that was called back. If that goal hadn't been
uh,
called back, do they have enough going forward to then to get a go ahead goal? And that's where I think it was like against Bay, they had enough to get that tying goal, but they couldn't really find a second, right? Against Portland, they couldn't find a second. And Portland put them under a lot of pressure. And teams are
and
going to continue to put them under pressure. And
yep,
and so what's gonna, are you just gonna then settle for a 1-1 tie? They're not really Laura's not the type to settle for a tie. She's just
mm-mm.
not. Not
I
until it's
think
like the last minute of stoppage time will she say, "Hey, don't let them score."
yeah, I think even after the Portland match, if I remember correctly from post match, she was pretty upset that they didn't get second one, if I remember
Yeah,
properly. I mean, like
yeah,
normally she is, but I remember that like maybe a little bit more clearly for some reason. I don't know.
yeah. She talked about some sort of heart and mouth moments, being a little bit stressed, and how maybe she wouldn't have been if they had gotten a second goal when they were creating a lot of opportunities in that first half. And when you don't get that second goal, you also it gives the other team some confidence, right? It makes them feel like they're still in the game, because they are still in the game. So as much as the defense has been good, is it going to hold up enough to continue getting 1-0 results? Because that's a tough thing to do.
It's a tough ask.
So I'm curious to see how that sort of develops over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, there's the international break in there. See how that affects things. Hopefully, everyone comes back healthy. Yeah, knock on the bald head.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, where are you going to watch all the away games for Seattle Reign FC this year?
Away games. Well, since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See y'all here.